Good afternoon. You're listening to the new WCEG Network on WCEGTalkRadio.com. Click the live stream tab or watch us live on your smart TV, YouTube, WCEG Network. I'm Celeste Giordano, your show host, along with Sarah Poe, my co-host. We're the Global Legacy and Wealth Building for the next hour. We're the worldwide community empowerment group where we speak life into the community. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and on Instagram at WCEG_talk_radio and at WCEG Network. Last but not least, our disclaimer: the topics and opinions are those of the show host and guest and not WCEG Network. Thank you for your continued support. Well, hello, ladies. How are you today?
Hello, everybody.
Hi. Hi, everyone.
I am so excited today, Sarah, about our show. You know, the title of the show is Hope for Friends with Mental Illness and Their Caregivers. And we have, seems like a regular, Christine Martinello with Lovebox Foundation joining us today. We also have Cindy, with her glasses, her shades, her love shades. And we have Cindy Levi with us today. And we're going to have a phenomenal show today. And Sarah, how is tax season going before we get started?
Well, I'm still in one piece. I haven't hurt anybody, and I'm still making it. Those are the three things I think about. I still am all in one piece. I haven't hurt anybody, and my hair's still on my head.
Well, so Sarah, before we do get started and introduce these ladies, what I'd love for you to do is share a little bit about yourself and about your company, and just say a quick hello and anything you'd like to say about tax season.
Okay. I'm Sarah Poe with Poe's Accounting. We're in Tequila, Georgia. Tax season's definitely in full swing. If you don't have your information to a tax professional by April 1st, just know you will probably get an extension. It's a crazy season. The IRS is still behind, and we try to help mitigate that as much as possible. Sometimes we can, and sometimes we can't. But I would, if you got any questions or whatever, I would hope you'd give me a call and let me see if I can help you. Again, Sarah Poe with Poe's Accounting. My email is spoe@poecpas.com, and my phone number is 770-545-8841. I'd love to help you. Thank you.
Absolutely, Sarah. And just real quick question, 2 dates. What is the deadline to have your taxes in?
The deadline this year is April 18th because there's a holiday in there. So
Okay.
It's April 18th.
April 18th.
If you file an extension, you should pay by that date too.
Very good. That's one question. Thank you very much. So I tell you what, Miss Christine Martinello, it is so wonderful to see you today and have you on our show. You and I have been talking at least once a week about so many positive things in the nonprofit industry, the amazing things that are going on with the Lovebox Foundation up there in Virginia and Georgia, and really just globally in the world. And I'm very excited to share today with our listeners at WCEG Talk Network, and very excited that for Penny for giving us this platform and opportunity to talk about mental health this month, because it is National Mental Health Month. Am I correct?
Yes.
Absolutely. And so, you know, Christine, you and I have been friends since 2016. And I tell you what, you are a joy and a blessing to know. And I love, Sarah and I both love all the work that you are doing. And we love the fact that Cindy Levi is our first time guest on our show today. And Cindy, we look forward to hearing about you. And I'm going to have Christine introduce you in just a minute. But what I'd like, Christine, is for you to share with our audience a little bit of a background about yourself, because I know some things have changed with the Lovebox Foundation now. And so please share with our audience about the Lovebox Foundation, please.
Sure, I'll be happy to. Well, hi, I'm Christine, And I'm the co-founder with my husband, Bob, of the Love Box Foundation. And basically, my alternate name, AKA, is Love Box Lady. And I love to have my little love shades there just to lighten things up. And really what we're all about is spreading love. Our mission is to spread love, and how we do that is really in two main ways. One, we do it through education, what we're going to be doing today, how people can love themselves, their families, and how communities can love on people with mental illness and their caregivers. And we do everything from, being in a parade where we promote love to love box events. So basically it's education and then events. And we really are passionate about spreading love and take it seriously and do it through, like I said, those two avenues. And then use my invention here. We have the original love box, the Christmas love box, and then we write love notes, and we spread love through love notes, through love box experiences for people to take them and do them with their own families, and then for communities and businesses to do it as well. So that's my one role. And then I'm also CEO of Training Solutions, which is all about the education. And we spread educational messages about love and loving your life and your family more. And really excited to announce that today we actually just finished our fifth book. And my husband and I are writing a book about the love box and all the applications of it, and have love notes for every kind of experience, from national disasters, shootings that happen, to events. It's used from everything from birth until death, and every celebration in between where people want to spread love. So we are the love people.
Absolutely, Christine. And again, I just want to say thank you so much, because Sarah and I, we're the co-founders of the Women of Community Impact, and we have partnered with you, and your amazing organization has donated numerous love notes to service projects that we have done, whether it be to homeless shelters for women and children, whether it's been to sex trafficking organizations where they're housing sex trafficking victims. You're doing love notes for our most current project, Sarah, is our foster children. And I think in May is National Foster Children Month, that we're between Georgia, Alabama, and Kentucky. And each one of these backpacks filled with hygiene items is going to have a handwritten love note, from the Love Box Foundation. And we are just honored and privileged to have that collaboration and camaraderie with you. Isn't that right, Sarah?
Oh, absolutely. And I can't imagine those wonderful kids getting those notes, and then when they're having a bad day, to pull out that note, right? And just have that warmth or the need, or just to feel the love come from the note, because we all have bad days, and it's nice to have somebody love on you when you have those days.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So, Christine, I thought with Cindy Levi here, Cindy has been a dear, dear friend of yours for a very, very long time. I have known Cindy about as long as I've known you, since 2016. And would you do the honors of introducing Cindy, because she has just, so many accolades, just like you do. And I just know that you would do justice for Cindy and introducing her to our listeners here at WCEG Talk Radio.
All right, Cindy, are you going to give me permission to do all this?
You go ahead. Who knows what Christine's going to say? I would imagine you're probably going to start off by saying Cindy is a love agent and she writes love notes. We have had so many opportunities to write love notes, and during the pandemic, to healthcare workers, during times whenever the law enforcement was under attack. We wrote love notes to let the law enforcement know how appreciated they are. The teachers, oh my, we've written so many love notes, firefighters, and it is just such an honor. So we'll start off with that. I'm proud to be a love agent.
Well, that's awesome. And what you all should know is that Cindy is an extraordinarily compassionate and courageous woman, and she professionally is CEO of Avita Community Partners, and as such really has a heart and soul for people that have mental illness and their caregivers. I have had the distinct pleasure of working and playing with you, Cindy, for many, many years. And I can tell you, Cindy walks the talk. And she does it with grace and spirit and dignity. And it's truly my honor to be able to have her here with us. And she would be too humble probably to tell you all of her accolades, but she has been, voted as one of the best healthcare professionals. And I had the honor to see her receive that award. And she has testified on the Senate floor in Georgia to be able to change legislation for mental health, and just delighted. She'll talk more about that in a little bit. But Cindy is making change, and she is ensuring that people who have mental illness are cared for, protected, and honored. And so thank you so much, Cindy, for being here. That's what I have to say. Is there anything you want to add?
No. Thank you so much for your kind words, Christine.
Very good. Well, Sarah, are you ready to get started? We have a great show lined up, and I know that these ladies are going to just educate and inform our community like no tomorrow about the mental health industry.
Yeah. So, what is the reality of mental illness in America today?
Yeah, with mental illness in America is really in transition, I think, and it has grown with the pandemic, as you can imagine. Stress has really, stress and circumstances have taken its toll on people. And so I wanted to share some statistics with you about the state of mental illness and mental health in America now. So my question for you is, do you know 4 people? Just 4 people.
Yeah.
If you know 4 people, then probably one of them has mental illness.
Wow.
Now, do you know 8 people? Probably. So you probably know 2 people that have diagnosed mental illness. And we could just compound that, because 1 in 4, or 26% of people in America, have a diagnosed mental illness. And that's diagnosed. And what we know is that a lot of mental illness even goes undiagnosed. So that's a lot of people. And so in terms of numbers, that's 56 million adults in America have mental illness. That's a lot of people.
That's a lot of people.
So many people. And when you look at that number, that seems so huge, and it is. And so let's break it down. So 46% of Americans will meet the criteria for a diagnosed mental health condition sometime in their life. So the first number, about 1 in 4, is, this past year or this year. So then in a lifetime, almost 50%. So that's 1 in 2, right? In a lifetime, because life changes, circumstances change, and so as we have sometimes more pressures or things change in our own body, with hormones, things shift. So that's a lot of people that are really impacted by it. Then I will say that, hold on a minute, that half sign's a little soft. I got to put my glasses on. Okay, nearly half of American children have had a serious traumatic experience. Now, sometimes people say, oh, I'm so stressed out, that's traumatic. And they're talking about things that they're using it in passing. When we're talking about trauma, we are talking about abuse, neglect, or actually something that is a significant, major traumatic event in someone's life. Put in that category of rape, put in that category, somebody that's been neglected for their whole life and they don't feel loved or cared for. These are serious, serious things, trauma, and then the other stat I want to share is that 60% of adults report having at least one traumatic incident in their life. So, we can really break it down into all the different categories of mental illness then. The largest categories are anxiety and depression. 42.5 million people in America have anxiety. Then looking at depression, people that have number of US adults with depression, it's 17.3 million. Then we can go to addiction and substance use disorder, that's 19 million people. Then we have bipolar, and that is 3.3 million people. Post-traumatic stress disorders, 12 million people. And schizophrenia, the number of US adults with schizophrenia is 1.5 million, approximately. And so while these numbers seem so huge, I want to share with you just a personal experience about why I'm so passionate about this. And that is that I was born into a family with mental illness. I had siblings with mental illness, severe mental illness. I had a parent with mental illness. Then as I was having my children, I faced, I had a traumatic childhood, and there is ways, I'll talk about it later, about ways that we can score ourselves. But I rate very high on the trauma scale. And then after I had my daughter, chemicals changed in my body, and I ended up having postpartum depression, and was in bed for months, and then spent years dealing with depression and anxiety and PTSD. And so while I have all these wonderful accomplishments and a wonderful life, it has not been without struggle, because I have struggled, and I'm very delighted to say that, it's a battle that we all can embrace, and it has helped me be more courageous and more compassionate to other people. That's probably why the Love Box Foundation exists, is that I understand what it's like. So I come today being a child, being raised in a family with mental illness, having mental illness myself, and then having dear loved ones that have severe, persistent mental illness of schizophrenia. So when I looked at these categories and researched this, I have been touched in every category. And so you could say I'm in the trenches. And so I come from a perspective of, having my psychology and education degrees and understanding it from a clinical background, but also just walking the walk every day. And so I hope that listeners hear that, because my feedback and my input is going to be from many different perspectives, because I see it from many different perspectives, and have walked the walk with a dear loved one for 6 years that has severe, persistent schizophrenia. And so mental illness has touched my family from birth till today, and it has altered, I'm sure, who I am, for the good, and also for the struggle and the terror that we've been through as a family. So I wanted to share that, because I think that expresses the gravity of the situation now. We hear all these big numbers, but what it means is that it touches every single one of us. And we can spread hope and change and love through it. So Cindy, would you like to add something?
Yes, I would. Actually, what I'd like to say first is hearing what Christine has said, and I've known her for a very long time. And she is an inspiration to so many people, because she has had these struggles and her family members have had these struggles, but she is a ray of hope. And that's what's very important. And we want to spread the idea and the concept that even if you have struggles in your life, if you have hope, you can overcome those struggles and you can be very successful. You can be a mother, you can be an entrepreneur like Christine. And so that's one thing that we do want to get across, that even though an individual has a diagnosed mental illness, does not mean that they cannot live a full, active, and rewarding life. And what it takes is having the necessary supports around you. And if there is a need for therapy or a need for medication, to follow through with those things, because mental illness is a disease of the brain. The brain is part of our body. And so when we look at that, there may be a chemical imbalance that a medication can help, just like an individual that has diabetes. So they may take a medication, and there's nothing wrong with that, to assist their body with the additional chemical that they may need. And it's the same thing with a mental illness.
Absolutely. Christine, I just want to say thank you so much from the bottom of our heart for being so authentic and sharing something so personal that you shared with our audience and us today. And it seems like for both of you ladies and Sarah, it seems like every time I'm reading a business article today, right now, it's talking about, and I know it's Mental Illness Month, but with this pandemic, they say that, there's articles now that are coming out, I guess, where they have the statistics and everything, where, there was more spousal abuse, during the pandemic because people were in lockdown and they were together. There was a lot of, mental struggles for children that didn't know how to deal with things like, being, having to do school online or whatever, and not having anybody, family there maybe to help them or guide them. So any comments that either one of you ladies want to say about the pandemic and that?
Yeah, I would like to add that I think, the pandemic is almost like squeezed the pressure of the problem. We had problems before, and now it's like squeezed everyone's stress level so high that there are more issues. And, my heart really goes out to parents, because I truly believe that parents were already under extreme stress, especially moms. I'll say, as a mom, doing so much, it's like now they have to do even more and better without being able to have as many outside experiences to be able to balance that out. So it really, self-care and balance is so critical right now, and having that as a priority as a parent, as a family, because it has really, the rates of abuse have gone up. Things have just gotten worse. Because just 2 years ago, the research was that it was 1 in 5 people, and now it's 1 in 4.
4, yeah.
Yeah, and I do want to add, though, I had this quote here that I just love, and it said, "Never give up on someone with mental illness. When I is replaced by we, illness becomes wellness." And Cindy, thank you for bringing that up, because, there is hope, and there is, there are strategies, and we'll get into some of those. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think there were 2 major areas of impact with the pandemic. One of them was uncertainty. We all like to feel as if we're in control of our lives and what we do and where we go and who we interact with. And when the pandemic first started, everything was uncertain. No one knew the answers. And so that raised the anxiety level for all Americans, actually everyone around the world. And the other thing is isolation. We are social beings, and we are meant to interact with others. And when the pandemic required us to isolate, that created additional struggles. And as Christine mentioned, parents in particular, trying to juggle, how are they going to work and provide for their families during that time? Some businesses closed, people lost their jobs. Others were kind of pushed from the workplace to remote working, which was learning something very different. And when they were at home trying to work, and their children were also at home trying to learn from school, just trying to juggle that really has been a struggle for individuals, parents in particular, raising anxiety, being around each other all the time. We love our families, we do, But you know what? We need some time when we're not with our families also. And so having that healthy balance is very important.
Yeah. And that's so true. One of my team members, when they were sheltering in place at home, they live up in Virginia there, Christine. The husband would work during the day remotely. The mother was doing the school with the small children, and then she would have to go do her work in the afternoon. And the stress that just comes with that is just it just kept compounding. I mean, they survive. They're great people, but not everybody can be complimentary like that and be able to do that.
Yeah.
So Cindy, I have a question. Practical ways to lift the stigma, please.
Oh, stigma. I really don't know why there's such a stigma that's associated with mental illness. As I said earlier, I mean, it's a disease. It's a disease of the brain. I mean, we don't have stigma for surrounding an individual that has cardiac issues, or that has cancer, or that has high blood pressure. So why does there need to be stigma associated with mental illness? Really don't understand that, but it is something that's real. People face it. And so there has been a lot of effort put forth to eliminate that stigma. The National Alliance for Mental Illness, NAMI, is a very good group that advocates on behalf of individuals with mental illness, offering supports to families, supports to the individuals, and really focus on stigma busting, really just eliminating that stigma and providing support to those that need it. We're seeing a lot more and hearing a lot more talk about it in our communities. I know that one of the communities that my agency supports is in Northeast Georgia, Hall County. And community members have come together to form a one Hall behavioral health committee. And so individuals of all walks of life have identified how important mental health is for everyone. And the United Way in the area has started a reach out campaign. So everything from billboards to having videos on their website talking about mental illness and mental wellness, mental health, and how really that mental wellness is important for everyone. And when an individual identifies that they are struggling with their mental wellness, then they need to address it. We need to have a good balance, a good work-life balance. We have to have a good balance where we're having fun in our lives and experiencing things and interacting with others. And so really, I think if we were to look at perhaps not talking about it as being an illness, mental illness, but if we talk about the importance of mental wellness, then perhaps that would help to reduce the stigma.
Mm-hmm.
Now, has it helped that these different athletes or celebrities are coming out and talking about how it's affected their lives? Has that helped take some of the stigma away?
Absolutely, Sarah. Thanks for bringing that up. I mean, every person that steps up and speaks, whether they are a celebrity or they're your person next door, can have an impact on others as far as eliminating that stigma and saying, hey, let's work together and let's support whoever may be struggling at that moment. But absolutely, as many celebrities have stepped forward, athletes, musicians have come forward and shared their story. One of the big things that we focus on in the state of Georgia is what we call a peer network. Having a peer network is individuals that either have a mental illness themselves or a family member that has mental illness, and they work as a peer right alongside of an individual that is experiencing that type of situation. You know, if you think about it, if you're challenged with something or you're facing something that you've never done before, who is the best person to turn to? A person that's been there before or has done it before, right? That's what we do. We seek out friends and we seek out colleagues and we seek out professionals that have been there and done that. And so the state of Georgia is real big on certifying peer specialists. And that would be individuals with a mental health diagnosis that are on their recovery journey. And so they have pretty much their symptoms are under control and at bay, and they can share the story, their personal story. And so whenever there is an individual that has had interactions with law enforcement, maybe not a positive interaction, although we're working really hard on that with educating our law enforcement agencies. Well, you know, someone that never had that experience can't exactly relate. So it's important to be able to interact with someone and talk with someone who has had a similar experience to walk alongside of the individual.
Yeah, and I just want to add, Cindy does that so beautifully, and I'll just from a personal experience, you know, when I had my postpartum depression, I didn't tell anybody. I mean, it was like shame. I felt like there was shame attached to it, and what's wrong with me? And you know, I can tell you, the statistics show that it takes people from the time that they actually know they have a mental illness till when they get treatment. It takes 8 to 11 years. 8 to 11 years. That, just think about that for a minute. Like, I walked through the cancer journey with my husband who had stage 4 cancer. Thank God he's fine now. We had answers in days. You know, we had answers, tests and answers. You know, so the question was about stigma, and I'll say that the stigma is so heavy on the individual because we still, even though people are talking about it, how we talk about it, and Cindy, I thank you for bringing that up, because we have to use the language of what it is. You know, we say cancer, we say, you know, heart problems, but rarely does somebody say, my uncle has schizophrenia. When's the last time you heard that? Because what happens? Boom! Like, nobody brings a casserole for schizophrenia. Right. Nobody. You know, so like, I'm just saying, bring the casserole, bring the casserole, and bring the casserole. You know, that's me being my creative self. But the bottom line is, move into it. If we know that 1 out of 4 people has it, and you don't know anybody who has it, you aren't seeing, you aren't asking, you aren't using language that somebody feels comfortable to be able to open up to you. And so we need to, like, on an individual level, on a community level, I love that billboards and, you know, advertisements and walks for mental illness, like all these things, we can all get involved and help break the stigma down. So if someone does open up to you, stay with them for years. It's not going to be 6 months, the person's fine. You know, that typically doesn't happen, especially if it's persistent and long-term. So, you know, I just really want us to use the words. I mean, when people ask, you know, I say my loved one has a brain disease. And then if they ask, oh, what kind? Then I would go into, nobody's ever asked me what kind. Nobody wants to, it's like nobody wants to know. You say mental illness and they don't know what to do. So I just wanted to share that because I think we need to be in the game, sending the casseroles, asking the questions year after year after year. And I'll just add, also praying for the person year after year after year. That is something that we can all do, is surround that person and that family. Because what I will say is that, you know, when my husband was diagnosed with cancer, we had everybody coming out of the woodwork. I am so thankful. You know, people bring casseroles, flowers, you know, I can honestly say I haven't gotten 1 casserole in 6 years of mental illness. And I don't need casseroles, you know, but it's a metaphor for, let's move in, let's get proximate, let's get close, and let's talk about it, because every person that bravely talks about it, and today is my first day of talking about it, where it will go out to in mass. It takes a lot of courage and compassion. And so let's funnel those good supportive vibes back, because people need them. They feel so lonely, so isolated. And then the hope is that when there's connection and compassion and courage, that we can get through.
Absolutely. Sarah, before we go with the next question, Christine, we have a couple of comments from our Facebook or YouTube Live.
Yay! People are watching.
I just want to say that Lynn Palizzi, and I apologize if I didn't say that correctly. She says, "You are so brave, Christine, so proud of you and so honored to be your friend." And then Casey James, "Thank you for your transparency with your personal story, Christine." So absolutely. And then we have a question that one of our listeners asked: "What role does mental illness play with the increased suicide rate?"
I'm going to refer to you, Cindy. You're the expert here.
Well, mental illness is often the precipitator for suicidal thoughts. Why? Because people feel as if they're hopeless, they're helpless, they're in a situation that perhaps they don't have answers to. And so they may think that ending their life is their only option. I am a suicide trainer. I go into schools. Now there is more talk about suicide. It's very important. And again, it's the message of hope to let people know you're not alone. You're not the only person that has had those thoughts, but don't act on those thoughts, because there are those around that care and want to help. There are many different resources that are available for individuals that may have suicidal thoughts. The program that I teach in the school is called the Yellow Ribbon Program. And so the yellowribbon.org is a good resource for information on what you can do, how you can address those questions or problems that you may be having. And also in the state of Georgia, there is an app, and it's the My GCAL app, MYGCAL, and it stands for the Georgia Crisis and Access Line. And if you load that app on your phone and you go ahead and click on it, there's resources that are available. There is a phone number that can be called 24 hours a day if you need to speak with someone. And there's also the opportunity to text with someone if you don't feel comfortable speaking with someone, but you would feel more comfortable, kind of like in the chat today, just chatting or texting with someone. That is another option that is available. So yes, the suicide rates have gone up since the pandemic started. It is an issue that we're trying to educate and let people know that that is not an option.
Cindy, and I appreciate that. We have a question. Could you please repeat that app again?
Sure. It's MyGCAL. Stands for My Georgia Crisis and Access Line.
Okay. And it's just how God lines people up. I woke up this morning to a private message to a very dear friend of mine that lives up in Canada. And I met her through business, through coaching and consulting. And we haven't spoken in a while. And just God laid it upon her heart to share a couple of things with me. And I'm praying for her and her family. But one of the things is that, and I don't know the particulars, but she was just telling me that last night that she took 4 hours to talk her one of her children down from suicide. And so I can't even just fathom, imagine. And Cindy, is there help or do you know of anything like that reaches out into the Canada area for things like this?
Well, there's that. Actually, if you go on the MyGCAL app, it does have a toll-free number on there, which is available anywhere, so that an individual can reach out and get help if they need someone to talk to at any time.
I just couldn't imagine being a parent or a friend, having to go through that. Just what goes through your mind and what you're saying, and you're not with those people. And just think about that when the pandemic came across and people were isolated, and how they dealt with those things. Cindy, I can just, I'm sure you guys had to deal with a lot of things like that.
Yes, and it's important that folks know that if someone is having those thoughts, that the most important thing is to be there for them. Just being there and listening and caring and sharing, and then of course get them some help if they're not able to move from those suicidal ideations or thoughts.
Absolutely.
You have to keep your home safe. I do know several families that have experienced this with their children as they've had those thoughts. And, you really have to look around your house and say, maybe I need to take those guns and lock them up, right? And get the bullets out of here, those types of things. So if you do have a loved one that has expressed suicidal thoughts, then you really want to be there for them, and you want to try to make the environment as safe as possible, and of course, get them the help that they need.
Absolutely. Sarah, do you have some questions for Cindy and Christine?
I do. So how can we build a more supportive and loving family so healing can happen? What's the best way to go about that?
Yeah. Well, I'll start with that one because I am the love lady about educating families about how to be more loving. And I'll tell you what we want to focus on, like when you think about having a family and you think about what's the big picture, like what am I doing here? And I talk to parents all the time and they say, I want to have happy, healthy kids, right? Happy, healthy. So we need to put mental health in that healthy category and think about how are we doing as a family in mental health. And so, I think the thing is we have to be very cognizant of what messages we are sending as a parent. If we're stressed, if we're out of balance, they do what we do, not what we say, right? Every parent knows that. So we need to check ourselves and make sure that we're focusing on being more balanced and coming back to center and handling things with peaceful problem solving. I've done so much conflict resolution training, and I tell you, it's so important that we handle things peacefully and with a problem solving model. And I'll just share the quick one now that could help parents, because I drilled this into my kids as soon as they could tell me a problem. I was like, you bring me a problem, we need to talk about solutions. I started that my very first career. So what is the problem? What is the cause of the problem? What are the impacts? What's a possible solution? And what are you going to do about it? Over, they would write it out. They would speak it out. We would talk about things. And so if we can teach children how to be rational problem solvers, and we can be rational problem solvers, we can make a huge dent, I think, in mental illness. And then I will say also, pouring loving words in. I'm the love box lady, and I've got all kinds of love notes here. Love notes, love. It's not one thing that you do once and you forget about it. For every correction that we do with our children, we should be pouring at least 5 positive imprints into them. And so I actually want to share just one of them with you. I actually pulled out a number of them, but I want to share, we do the Love Box tradition every year on Christmas Eve. That's how it started in 1999. That tradition has built a foundation of love in our family and a way for each of us to communicate. And so when we put all those love notes in the box, and then we pass the box around and each person pulls it out and reads it out loud to each other, it is a communal experience of love. It's like, how does my husband love my daughter? I might be able to read that to each other. We need to build loving families. Get the kids off the devices. and spend time writing love notes and reading them out loud. I'm telling you, you will see a difference. It has happened over and over and over again. And so the one that I actually want to share with you is for a caregiver. And so we've been writing love notes in the month of this month for people with mental illness. And one woman, I'll tell you the story, is that we have love notes for people with mental illness and then their caregivers. And when people came to write the love notes, they were so surprised that they chose the ones for caregivers to write over and over and over again, because each time they wrote it, it gave them an imprint of hope. And so writing the love notes gives us more love. Reading them gives us more love. Receiving them and reading them over and over again gives us more love. So this one is Dear Caregiver. And this one is from Kim. And she said, hope is a great thing. You are doing incredible work. You were given your loved one for a reason and for a season. I'm sure you've experienced cycles of extreme highs and lows, and yet your commitment and passion are unwavering. Your light shines brightly, and your love is so needed. Thank you for all you're doing. So just imagine as a caregiver, who recognizes the caregivers? They're in the struggle every day and not getting much recognition.
They are.
They are now.
Absolutely. It's very hard to be a caregiver. Most definitely. And that leads to one of the questions, Christine. Somebody asked, any resources for caregivers and any tips for caregivers?
Yes.
Cindy, would you like to?
Yeah, the National Association on Mental Illness has a parent-to-parent course. Can you hear me? Mm-hmm. Okay, so National Association on Mental Illness has a parent-to-parent course that you could take. My husband and I took that. It's a 12-week course. We're also going to go in Virginia. They actually have a parent conference, which I'm so excited about. So all of us parents and caregivers are going to go, share resources, ideas, support for each other. Then I did want to share a couple of other resources as we were talking. It's important for parents to know what their ACEs score is. The ACEs is Adverse Childhood Experiences score. Anybody can take it. It's free. It's online. And I wrote it here, but I don't see it right now. But basically, it's ACEs, just Google ACEs score, and you'll find it. And you can see what is your level of trauma. Because the thing is, if you have a family member or person that you're dealing with that has trauma, then you have a trauma childhood, then you're ending up with PTSD and more trauma, because trauma gets reopened again every time you're trying to deal with a crisis situation or another traumatic event. All right, and then there's also this it's called childtrauma.org, and it's a collaboration of all sectors of society where they are all focused on childhood trauma and trying to help people heal from it. So those are some of the resources that I have. Oh, there's also Mind Up. Mind Up is an organization out of California. And here I have that here. Goldie Hawn started this long time ago, the Goldie Hawn Foundation. And it's a nonprofit to help children develop the knowledge and tools they need to manage stress, regulate emotions, and be able to be more pro-social and not be so isolated. And really her approach brings in mindfulness. It brings in a holistic approach of mind, body, and spirit. And that is in school systems and is growing more and more. She's getting it into more and more school systems. So those are a couple of resources for families that I think really can help them. Oh, here's the ACEs score. It's on the same page. It's acesaware.org.
Mm-hmm. Can you put that in our chat, Christine, if you would, please, so we can get shared?
My pleasure.
I appreciate that. Before we go to our last question, we're about 11 minutes out. Cindy, is there anything that you would like to add to Sarah's question? How can we build more supportive and loving families so healing can happen.
Sure. Well, I would suggest connecting with your faith community as one option. Also, just support groups are great. I know that Christine mentioned NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. That's a great resource. NAMI.org, NAMI.org is a great resource. And really, I'm going to take a minute and just address the relationship between parents and their children, because parents are under a lot of stress. They have to provide for their families. They want to be the best parents they can be. They have social commitments. They're trying to juggle everything. Sometimes parents allow the stress of their everyday life to impact how they interact with their children. Those children are creatures that are sponges, and they're soaking all of this up. And what we want them to soak up is love and support, not criticism. And so please remember how important that is for your children. You should be the biggest cheerleader for your children.
Absolutely. I know that I was driving here to work this morning, and I got behind somebody who was driving 25 miles an hour, and it was an older gentleman, and I've got all these negative thoughts going on, and I'm just, and I thought, stop, that could be you one day. I think the positive that we give to kids can make all the difference in the world. And I was just being negative with myself. It was just me in that car. I was thinking, this has got to stop.
Yeah. Well, and just give people some grace. Yes. You don't know what that person's going through. So having empathy and understanding is extremely important.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And Cindy, you using that word grace reminds me of a dear high school friend of mine in Texas, a Christian. And she just she was here in Atlanta for a few years, her and her husband, and she really educated me a whole lot more on the word grace and the faith for Christian spirit. And she is going through some chemotherapy right now. And what the attitude and the thought process out of her mind is just so positive and just has so much grace, and I'm lost for words for how she speaks and talks about this. And she speaks and that she is healed, and she is healed. But the grace that we need to give ourselves and our loved ones that are going through the mental illness or the caregivers, we need to give them grace. But also on another flip side of that is that we were talking about positive and negative. You can't have a positive and negative together. They just don't connect. And so I have a lot of elderly friends, and I have some elderly family members. And what a difference in talking to some of them, that they're most of them can be so positive, and you enjoy speaking with them. Then there's some that when you talk to them, it's just negative and poor pitiful me. And I think, where is the mixture of that, or how do you help that person that dwells on the negative versus the positive?
Yeah, it comes down to gratitude, right?
Yes.
They say that people that are counting their blessings see more blessings, have more blessings. It's like what we focus on expands. That's just a law of nature. So, we are all seeing the world in a certain way. And if we're going to look for negative, we're going to look for we're going to see more of it. There's plenty of it. But then if we're going to see and find that one silver lining, and then expand that. Like I took this course at Yale. It's called The Science of Well-Being. Anybody can take it now. They actually offer it for free now. I didn't take it when it was free, but it is free now. And certified in The Science of Well-Being. And one of the things was that our mind is actually always playing tricks on us. And for us to survive, we had to always be scanning the environment for the lion so we don't get killed, right? Like we're always scanning for what could go wrong. So when we look through the eyes of love, we're scanning for what goes right. Oh, look at that. That person helped me. Oh, look at that. That person let me in the line. Whereas if you're going to blow up about that person just cut me off, you're going to see more of that. And so we really have to put the lenses of love on and give other people grace. And I do want to share this one story. It's popped into my head because one thing that I think our family has done particularly well is built this support network through this journey. And we have phenomenal friends. And I will say that one of the things I remember when my loved one was really struggling, I reached out. I mean, I have a prayer group that they're text on demand, and we had a particularly tough 3 days. We were driving to Connecticut to get this person into a residential facility. That didn't work out. They decompensated. We had to drive back to Virginia. We drove down. He flew up it was just nuts how much stress was involved in this. It was like 4 days of continual stress. We had to drive all night to get back. But I'm telling you what, on my phone, I had my friends, and it was like they prayed me through.
Absolutely.
They were with us every step of the way. And, I am eternally grateful because we have to pray for each other. And we have started now a prayer network through the Love Box Foundation. So if anyone has prayer requests that they want to send to us, we accept every religion. There's no religion specific, but we will pray because prayer works. And we have to be holistic in our approach, mind, body, spirit. And, it's been beautiful to watch my children support this other loved one because we've gone to family therapy. We've done whatever it takes, had Thanksgiving dinner on the floor, surrounding this person because they couldn't get out of bed for months and wouldn't speak. We did whatever it took, always with the lens of love. It takes incredible courage, compassion, and continual strength. And so as a person, you have to shore up your own strength in order to pour that into someone else, because the journey and the suffering is long, but the love is bigger and love always wins.
Absolutely. So Sarah, we have about 3 minutes left, and I have one question, and we'll have to probably minimize some of this. Hope is coming. New programs and initiatives are coming to provide healing, therapy, and access to care.
Cindy, you want to go first? You have so much with the state coming up.
Yes, and I just put some information in the chat for those of you that are Georgia listeners. You can go to the Georgia General Assembly website, and I would suggest that you take a look at House Bill 1013, 1013, and Senate Bill 403. So the Speaker of the House in the state of Georgia, Speaker Ralston, has identified this year in legislation as the year of mental health. And so there is a lot of focus and a lot of emphasis on providing supports to individuals that have mental illness and their families. And so House Bill 1013 actually is a bill that was devised by the recommendations from the Behavioral Health Reform and Innovation Commission. And there are 5 main components. I know we don't have time to go through all of those, but everything from mental health parity to make certain that insurance companies are providing funding for mental health treatment, to education and loan forgiveness to work with the workforce, to assisted outpatient treatment. There are just so many things that you can take a look at in this House bill. And then Senate Bill 403 is the co-responder bill. And co-responder is where a mental health clinician actually is assigned to work with local law enforcement agencies, so that when there is a time of crisis and police have to be called to help and intervene, that a mental health clinician can go along with them and assist. So I'm looking at the time, so I'm gonna be quiet, but I put those in the chat for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you so much. Sarah, what a powerful hour on mental health today.
I mean, it's very eye-opening to me because I don't really have anybody in my immediate family with that. I've got family members with anxiety and some of that, and the pandemic made some of that worse, but it's been very eye-opening to me because I don't experience it that often.
Absolutely. So we're at the top of the hour here. Christine Martinello and Cindy Levi, thank you so much for being our guests tonight and helping us with the Love Box, about the Love Box Foundation, about the healthcare and the organizations that you have, Cindy, that you're working with. Sarah, it's just an amazing thing for all of our listeners to listen to this over, once it's played here, and listen to it again. And we're very thankful for WCEG Talk Radio for the opportunity and this platform to bring this message out to all of the WCEG community and listeners. And with that, we wish each and every one of you a wonderful and blessed day. And remember, Christine, leave us with a quote if you would, or something.
All right, and I want to ring the bell after I'm done. I'm going to read you part of a love note, very short. Dear loved one, when I look at you, I see incredible strength, courage, and perseverance. You battled more than most people ever will. Ultimately, the journey that you're on is uniquely yours, yet you are not alone. We love you and are with you every step of the way. Keep believing in yourself. I have full faith in you, and I love watching you grow in so many ways. And I'm just going to say, be unstoppable, because the only way we're going to lose this battle is by stopping, and we're not going to stop. People love you and care about you, and are going to keep fighting the good fight till this gets better.
Thank you so much. With that, ring the bell, Christine. We are done. And thank you, Penny Rogers and the board at WCEG Talk Radio. And for our listeners, we appreciate you, and we appreciate and love each and every one of you for joining us. Have a great week, ladies. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.